All right, it's 3:03. I think we can get started.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrea Walker, the IO 508 Compliance Officer, and my partner in crime here is Curtis Ross. We're going to
Good
be
afternoon.
conducting the Section 508 training with you all this afternoon because you are the lucky folks that have been selected to be presenters for the 2024 AmeriCorps Seniors Convening. So congratulations on that. And the purpose of this training session is to make sure that you all are aware of what Section 508 means, if you are not already, how that will impact your slide deck presentation that you're working on right now, and some of you have already submitted. How do you go about checking that slide deck? And then we'll give you time to ask any questions that you may have. If it's something that you want to ask while we're talking, I will pause and take a breath and give you time to do so. But again, we just wanted to make sure that we covered with you all the importance of Section 508 compliance, how to check for that in documents that you're in the process of preparing. Excuse me. Reminding you that we will need your document by July the 2nd so that it can be reviewed. And if there are any issues with it, it can be returned to you with what the recommendations are to fix whatever needs to be fixed. And you'll have time to do that and turn it around and get it to us so that it'll be ready to be uploaded in time for you to do your presentation on the meeting. So Section 508 is part of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and it is a law that requires federal agencies to make their electronic and information technology accessible to people with disabilities. We're all familiar with what ADA is and what we need to do to accommodate folks in that regard. So what we need to make sure that we're also aware of is how 508 compliance affects folks with disabilities, because of course, we all know that all disabilities are not physical. So you may not know that someone is experiencing a disability or a barrier to being able to participate in your presentation. So some of those barriers may include folks that may be deaf or hard of hearing. And if they are, then it'll be difficult for them to be able to participate using some online training videos or something like that. So you would need to then include closed captions, make sure there's alternate text in there in your presentation. There are folks who also use what's called a screen reader. And some of those people may be suffering from low vision, they may be blind, they may just have a cognitive disability where they need to use a screen reader that reads aloud to them the information that it is that you're trying to convey in your presentation. So you would create your document and make it accessible for them by making sure that you go in and have your information in logical reading order. Make sure that you have included any alternate text that describes items that are included in your presentation. You want to be aware of how you're using things that wink and blink and types of animation and pictures and things like that, because if you include those types of things in your presentation, and I'm someone who's using a screen reader, the screen reader may not be able to detect what that is. So when you're preparing your slide presentation, you'll need to make sure that you describe that if you choose to leave that in there. It also may be someone who is suffering from a motor disability, so they may not be able to use a mouse. So you may incorporate something in your presentation that requires them to fill out a form. If that is the case, they will not be able to do that. So if they're using their laptop, they may be able to use arrows on the keyboard to move about throughout that document. So you want to be aware of those types of things. So those are some of the barriers that may not be very obvious to those of us who are presenting to an audience, but they are barriers, and those barriers could prevent someone from being able to adequately receive what it is that you're trying to convey in your presentation. So what Section 508 does is, again, it requires you as federal agencies to make sure that your document is accessible for everyone. So 508 in your document will be referred to as checking accessibility, so that you're making it accessible for the individuals who are participating. Any questions about that? Fantastic. Okay, so what we're also going to do is share with you a document and give you an example of how you would then check for accessibility in a PowerPoint, how you would check for accessibility if you're using a PDF. You can even check accessibility if you're using a Word document, and be aware that if I'm creating my presentation in Word and then I save it as a PDF, if I've checked accessibility in Word, and everything checks out, or I've made whatever the changes are that it tells me that I need to change, and then I save it as a PDF, it's important that you check it again in PDF format, because some things may change as far as what someone with that disability will see. So it may be tagged for different things, maybe the slide order, maybe the titles page isn't there. So you want to make sure that you do a check twice. If I'm using a PDF, you want to make sure that you check that, and we'll show you how to do that. If I'm using a PowerPoint, you're going to see certain errors, warnings, or tips, and that's telling you that something in your accessibility needs to be changed. If I'm using a PDF, you're still going to see errors, warnings, and tips, but what you'll see that as is a red X that'll tell you that that's an error that needs to be corrected on your PDF. You'll also see a blue question mark in your PDF, and that may be a warning, and it's telling you that something needs to be fixed there that could impact someone with a disability that we just described. And then it may be something that's just a suggestion that says, if you do this, it would be great. And that's the equivalent of a tip if you're working in your PowerPoint. So accessibility is everywhere. And so it's something that if we're creating presentations, if we're working in Word, if we're working in Microsoft Office, in anything, it's there as an option for you to be able to check, even in email, in Outlook, to make sure that your document or whatever it is that you're sending electronically is accessible for anybody that might have one of the disabilities that we talked about. So I'm going to pull up a document and share my screen with you that shows you how to check for accessibility in a PowerPoint and in a PDF. And again, if you should have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, the little hand symbol, to put something in the chat. Curtis will be watching that, or to just unmute yourself and ask the question. But I'm going to share my screen. Oh, we have a question already, Pam. Yes.
Hi. Oh, sorry, it's really dark. I'm sorry, but before we go on to how to check it, I have a question about, so in my presentation, I will have a number of graphs and tables, etc. So are you saying that what I need to do is, like, wherever I have a graph, I need to put in the PowerPoint itself, not in the comments below, but like in the PowerPoint itself, it needs to say a sentence like, this is a graph showing a downward trend from the years 2022 to, see what I'm saying? Is that what I'm supposed to be doing?
Sort of, but what you'll see, Pam, is when I pull up this document, when I referenced alternate text, you're going to do that using the alternate text. So it's not necessarily something that'll be seen in your slide deck, but
Okay.
it's alternate text that the screen reader will be able to read that describes to the person that's visually impaired that this is a graph. And when you're doing your presentation, I'm sure that you'll do just what you did. You'll describe what it is in your graph and all of that. So in your alternate text, because you're going to get something that says, I don't know what this is. It won't say, I don't know what this is, but it's going to give you an error that says alternate text. And so you'll just insert alternate text that says this is a graph. And
okay, thanks. I wasn't sure if I should wait until later in the present. So it sounds like you're going to answer this just fine later. So thank you very much.
No, your question was right on time, because I'm sure someone else has that question as well, because it is alternate text, and that's what that speaks to. And know that the system will generate alternate text for you. So it'll even generate it for you, or you can put it in yourself. So you could do it either way. So we'll talk about that. I'll show you what that looks like.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And I see that we have a couple of requests for these instructions in the chat. So I'll send that out to everyone.
Okay. So yesterday there were gremlins in my laptop and it didn't want to share. So let's see if it's going to play nice today. I'm going to say that it will. What do you think, Curtis? We'll see.
I think it will. I have faith.
Okay. I'm going to share it. You all should see my screen. Please say yes. Right.
Yes, I see it.
Awesome. 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 Okay. So this is the document that I was referring to that tells you how to use the accessibility checker to identify whatever issues may or may not exist in your presentations. So the first part of it talks about identifying possible issues that persons with disabilities may encounter if you are checking a PowerPoint. So again, remember I referred to error, warning, or tip. So these are the different classifications that you'll see. An error must be corrected. It has to be corrected because that is going to make it nearly impossible for someone with one of those disabilities to be able to read your, to know what your presentation is saying. If it is a warning, it may make it difficult, but in some cases, somebody may be able to understand it. It's just they may or may not. So if you get a warning, depending on what it is, that may be something that you want to go ahead and correct. And a warning could be slide order. I've seen some of those in some documents that some presentations that's already been submitted. And by slide order, I mean, if I am a person that's looking at your presentation and I'm relying on my screen reader to tell me what it is that I'm seeing. If whatever the content of your slide is, if that's the first box that opens up, that's the first thing that the screen reader is going to read. It's not going to see your title page or your title in your slide. It's not going to see a welcome if you have that next. So just think of it in terms of logical reading order if you weren't the one that was presenting it. So if you were the one that was looking at it, you're sitting in the audience and you're trying to figure out, what it is that I'm hearing. So if you introduce yourself, but the screen reader is already to the first information box in your slide, then that's what the screen reader is reading to the person that's receiving that information and not your introduction. That could be part of your slide. I hope that makes sense. So you want to look at logical reading order to make sure that it makes sense to the person who is using a screen reader. So that could be a warning. A tip could be something that someone with disabilities probably will understand, but it can make it a lot better if you changed it. So Pam, you asked about identifying a graph. If you're going to use a lot of graphs and different things like that, some people use pictures, some people use other types of animation. If it's something that you just deem as decorative, it's not something that's going to make a difference in what it is that you're trying to convey, then that may be a tip that you just then, explain in that alternate text that it's just decorative so that the person who's using the screen reader doesn't have to worry about trying to figure out what that is. Now, if it's a graph and that's some information that you want them to be able to receive, then that I would put in alternate text, that this is a graph. And remember, you can be as descriptive as you want to be, or you can allow the system to create whatever that alternate text is for you. Keep in mind that if the system generates the alternate text for you, that you need to okay it. So it could generate the alternate text for you, but then you have to approve it. And if you don't, and it goes through and Pam, you're doing this amazing presentation and you've done the alternate text or you've let it generate alternate text and it says blue graph, but you never went through and clicked on that approve box, then when you do a check again, or if you send it to me and you say, hey, I've done the check and it said that it was okay, I put in my alternate text, and then I receive it and I open it and I look at it and it says, oops, there are all these warnings and it's for alternate text. And when I look at that, more than likely it's going to be because you didn't click on that approve generated alternate text. So just be aware of that as well. Okay. So how to submit a Section 508 accessible PowerPoint? How do I even know? How do I start to check it? When you open your document on the ribbon bar, you're going to click on Review. When you click on Review, then it's going to open something else up and you're going to see Check Accessibility. So again, whenever you see accessibility, it's checking for 508 compliance. Did someone have a question? Okay, I thought I heard something. So on the ribbon bar, you just check Review, click on Review, and then select Check Accessibility. And then you will see a window that will open up here on the right-hand side, and it will tell you whether or not there are any errors in your document. So it's giving you your inspection results is what it's doing. And let me stop and also back up and say that Curtis provided a template for everyone to use, but you didn't have to, it wasn't mandatory, but he created a template for you to use that was already accessible. It's an accessible template. What does that mean? It means that that template, if you choose to use it to create your slide deck, is going to already automatically start tracking any issues that could cause someone with a disability to not be able to read. So it will track them, but it's not going to make the corrections. You still need to make sure that you do the check and that you see whatever errors or warnings or tips there are, and that you make the corrections. The other thing that's really cool about it is that sometimes you can just right-click on it and it'll tell you, as you see here, in this example over here on this side, it has the inspection results open, it has warnings, and what it's telling us is that it's hard to read text contrast. What does that mean? You probably need to change your font color. So be careful using bright, like highlight colors like yellow, because somebody who has low vision or is vision impaired, that may be something that's really hard for them to see. Be careful using a light gray. So just be kind of aware as you're creating your document of, again, if I were the person using a screen reader, if I was the person that had a disability, would this affect me? Just kind of keep that in the front of mind. So the other thing I was going to say is that here it has recommended options. So the recommended options are font color. So you can just click on that and change it. In some instances, it'll say that you can fix it and it'll ask, do you want me to fix it? And if you click on yes, it'll fix it for you, which is really nice as well. So all you have to do is click on the fix button and then that warning goes away. The error goes away. The tip goes away. Whatever the results were that are over here in this box will then go away because you've addressed them. But again, remember, if it's alternate text and you allow the system to generate the alternate text for you, you need to approve it. Make sure you're okay with it.
And just to be clear, while these instructions indicate that this is for checking a PowerPoint document, these same steps can be followed for pretty much any Microsoft Office document. So if you have a handout that you're preparing in Word, you can follow the same steps. Go to the Review tab and click on Check Accessibility. The same steps would follow.
Thank you, Curtis. Yes, whatever it is that you're preparing that you are going to use at this convening, just make sure you check accessibility.
Yep.
The other thing is that at the bottom of the document, it may tell you that you have some issues that you need to address. So at the very bottom of it, you may see something that says accessibility investigate. If you see that, then that means that it's an issue with that and you need to go in and fix it. Before you ever hit the check accessibility, you may see that at the bottom of it.
Yep, it's constantly monitoring.
So again, that's the value in using that template that Curtis provided as well.
Yep. So
how to check 508 accessibility on a PDF. So some of you have chosen to use your PowerPoint and save it as a PDF. If you do that and you've checked your PowerPoint for 508 accessibility and you fixed whatever it is that it said was wrong, that is fantastic. However, When you save it as a PDF, please check it again. Because again, something could show up in PDF format that didn't show up in PowerPoint format, or whatever you saw in PowerPoint format, once you save it as a PDF, then it may say, oh, well, I don't know what that is in PDF format, and you need to go in and fix it. And it may be the exact same thing, but you just need to go in and fix it. So in a PDF, because you're using Adobe Acrobat, then you're going to check accessibility by clicking on all tools. So if you see here, here's all tools. And then I'm going to click on view more. And then right here, it says prepare for accessibility. And then check accessibility. So it's just a few more steps involved. And then right here, I'm going to click on start checking my document. And when I start to check the document, my accessibility checker window opens up on the right-hand side, and it tells me what my issues are. So I have these issues here. When I click on that arrow to expand it, it tells me what they are. One of them is logical reading order. This one says tagged PDF failed, primary language failed, title failed. And if we see the red X, remember the red X in a PDF needs to be corrected. So if I right click on that, I can do a few different things. I can choose to just click on fix and it'll fix it for me. Or if I want more of an explanation, I can click on explain and it will open up an additional window in Acrobat that tells you even more about what that tagged item is. And then I can check it again. But what I would probably do if it were me is just fix it. So when I click on fix, notice the red arrow is gone. Because whatever that issue was, it has fixed it for me. And I can do that for each one that has the red X. It'll fix it. And remember, logical reading order, you can do the explain, but it kind of speaks for itself. Look at it and make sure that it's in an order that makes sense. This is a question mark, so if you fix it, it's going to help the person. If you don't fix it, then they could be a little confused. But it's a question mark, but the red X's must be fixed. If I go down here to alternate text, it says there's figures with alternate text that failed. But underneath here, you see some other things passed, and that's good. If I right click on that, and again, I can either ask for a deeper explanation, I can skip it, which I do not advise you to do, because when you send it to me, I'm going to then send it back to you and say you need to fix it. So again, just tell it to fix it. And then it opens up this box and it gives you the option to put in what the alternate text is that needs to go there. And Pam, remember I said it could be just decorative? Here's the decorative option. So if I click on decorative and I save it and close, then it takes that away for that one. And what you didn't see is that there's going to be a box or a window, you'll see around what it is, excuse me, where the problem is in this actual document so that you know what you're adding alternate text for. So you would just go through that for each one. So it tells you which figure it is that it's looking at. See how it turns colors? And I can fix it by putting in the alternate text. What is this? So it's asking me to describe the image. And you can be as descriptive as you want or just click on decorative. And then to me, as the person using the screen reader, I know that I don't need to worry about that. Any questions so far?
We did have one question in the chat from Jennifer asking if we can, if they can submit handouts as PDFs or if they had to be Word documents. And we can certainly accept handouts as PDFs. Yep.
We
In
can.
fact, yes. In fact, we prefer your handouts to be submitted as PDFs. We'll be sharing them on the website and in the mobile app, so it's easier for those documents to download as PDFs.
And just make sure you check it for 508
Yep.
compliance.
Any other questions?
This is a quiet group today.
Great.
Okay.
Just to reiterate, your presentations and handouts are due on July 2nd. They're going to be submitted via email to Andrea. So does everyone have her email address? I did include it in an email I sent out. Just for good measure, I can add it to the chat.
I do have one quick question.
Sure.
Hi, I'm just wondering, so if we notice any changes that need to be made to our slides, like sometimes I'll catch a typo, I'm so deep in the weeds on it. What would we do in that case? Like, let's say on July 5th, I noticed I wanted to make a change. Is that possible, or is the second the absolute last opportunity to?
Yes, that is possible. And the reason we set such an early deadline is because, again, to Andrea's point, we have to check all of these documents for 508 compliance, as well as get them posted to the website and whatnot. So we anticipate some back and forth once we receive the document. So we definitely have a couple of days of a cushion in there.
Okay, so should we just email you two if I were to catch a typo that isn't necessarily a 508 thing, but that I wanted to fix?
Correct, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I did have one other question.
Sure.
Would you prefer the presentations as PDFs as well, or is it okay to send you a PowerPoint file? Whatever, we can do whatever. I just want to know what's easiest.
I would prefer them in PDF, a PowerPoint. And then if you're going to use your handouts, you can use handouts in either Word or PDF. But like Curtis said, the preference is PDF. It's just easier to upload. And you don't have to worry about anybody making any edits to your document. But yes, PowerPoint for your presentations. And if you want to do the handouts in PDF, that's great.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
This was helpful.
Wonderful. I'm glad.
I'm gonna jump into, sorry everyone, but so I understand we have to turn in like the slides for presentations. Representing a group, we're doing a workshop in addition to the poster. So do we have to turn over artifacts? Because we're gonna turn in the slides by the 2nd, but we're still working on setting the ambiance for our presentation, which we hope to be more of like a gallery walk. So that would be a lot of artifacts to turn over by the 2nd. So maybe I should follow up separately, or did I understand that you said we have to turn in PowerPoint and documents? Both are required?
Yeah, I think we should probably have an offline discussion about that,
Right.
because it depends on how those artifacts are going to be integrated.
Okay. Great.
So
Well, I know
is
you're
it-
sending the info, so I'll follow up with you, Mr. Curtis.
Okay.
I was just going to say, Karina, am I pronouncing your name right?
Yes.
If you wanted to hang on, Curtis, if you have time for like a couple of minutes
Sure.
after this, then, we can discuss it if you want.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I hope this was helpful. We'll get you the instruction sheet that we used today. Again, just make sure that you're checking your documents, and for 508 compliance, send them over. I will definitely send you back any recommendations that I have once I review your document. Again, if it's just a recommendation, you don't have to make the change. But if it's an error, you do have to make that change, and I'll return that back to you. One way or the other, I'm going to send you back a response that will tell you your document, your presentation is 508 compliant. Thank you. You're ready for upload, or please make these changes and here are additional recommendations, and then resubmit it so that I can look at it again for a final review. Okay? All right.
And also, I just posted the PowerPoint template and those instructions to the chat. So feel free to download those as well. Any additional questions before we wrap up?
We
Awesome.
certainly appreciate your time this afternoon, everyone, and we look forward to receiving your presentations.
Yes, and a great convening.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for your
absolutely.
time.
Thank you, everyone. Karina, please stay on.
Thank you.
Thank you.